County Operations Committee of Wednesday, May 29th. It's 12:32. So the first thing I need is, I don't have minutes to approve, so I will not approve minutes. We'll move to informational items. The first item on informational is the workforce report, so I'll turn it over to Administrator Sorrell.
Picked a bad minute to take a bite of a cookie. All right, so because there are no minutes in the packet, the workforce dashboard is on page 1 after the top sheet. It's for activity through the end of April. You can see in the top third the number of applicants and then the number of new hires. For the listening audience, something that we say every month, just reflects that new hires in April are not expressly related to the number of applicants we've seen in April, because sometimes the hiring process takes more than a month. Middle of the page has our current workforce diversity statistics, and then the bottom of the page has information on separations. So we've got, in April of, you'll see that we had, a total of 10 separations, 7 were resignations, 1 retirement, and 2 other. And then in the bottom right, what the data looks like at a department level. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, we will move to the vacancy report.
All right, that is on page 2 of your packet, Mr. Chairman. As of the date of printing, you can see that there were 77.28 full-time equivalent positions that were vacant. The majority of them are in the elected offices, with the sheriff having 24. So, almost a third of the total vacancies are in the sheriff's office. Another 11 in the state's attorney, and health department has 14. So those are the 3 largest departments with vacancies right now. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Sharon.
Thank you. Scott, I'm assuming the 1.6 at planning and zoning, the 0.6 is the plumbing inspector.
Correct.
What are we doing about that? Because I know that our employee has retired, and I think we are required to have one.
So, correct, we are required to have a form of plumbing inspections. Our full-time plumbing inspector did retire as part of a reorganization process that Kathy started and Andrew is implementing. We're transitioning that plumbing inspection position based on volume and need to part-time position, 6/10 of a full-time equivalent. We've been actually advertising for that for a number of weeks with little success. It's not exclusively a wage issue. It's the fact that there just aren't enough plumbers that are in a retirement phase of their career, most likely, and want to come do this type of work. As an interim step, so that we maintain our plumbing inspection compliance, we're working with the state's plumbing inspector, which is frequently done in situations like this. And so there is a state plumbing inspector as well that we have access to, and that's what the short-term solution is.
All right, good question. Any other questions from any other committee members? As always, I think this is a good report to keep it visible in front of us as to where openings are at, potentially where churn is going on, and kind of drive some of our interaction with department heads or electeds. With that, the next item is one that we've asked to have teed up. IT, one of the things that, I think we all look at IT and it's somewhat a mystery in the background. They do a lot of different things. And so from my standpoint, we've asked Mark to come in today and give us kind of an overview of the IT department, to help educate us and understand, it's an opportunity for us as committee members to ask Mr. Little questions regarding IT, and then he will provide in the next probably 2 or 3 meetings, maybe some more drill down, because we're in a budget cycle, which we'll be talking about, I think, in finance. So with that coming along, I thought it was a perfect time, and I thank Mark for coming in to educate us. So it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I put together a high-level overview today. Within this, we'll talk about just a high level of our budget, what our staffing looks like between IT, GIS, and office services, the hardware we support, the software we support, what our projects are looking like for this year, what we're working on. And we have 2 full years worth of track it help desk data. We moved over a new system a couple of years ago that allows us to track data a little better. And then I have the first quarter data from this year. So the 2024 IT budget, prior to some transfers in, the IT operations side of the budget is $5.8 million. That's the separate IT portion of that. GIS is $410,000 roughly, and then office services is $570,000. So those are the 3 separate buckets where money is allocated. Within the IT operations staff, we have actually 17 FTEs within the IT specific staff. GIS, there are 2 full-time FTEs, and office services, there's 1. So within all those, there's 20 FTE total. Currently, usually we're fully staffed. Right now, we're down 2 FTEs. We have 1 replacement hired, and we are searching for a second one at the moment. So we also currently have, during the summer, we usually bring in some interns. We currently have a IT FTE and a GIS FTE that are here for the summer. So we'll break this down. This is the overall, the org chart, what it looks like as a whole. I know it's difficult to see, but I will go on to the next slide and break this out a little bit for you. This is the management team. I have a business application managers, which oversees the application support team of all the applications we have. Technical manager, he oversees all the technical side of the IT piece. Finance manager oversees office services and does all our purchase orders, tracks all our contracts for both IT and does PO work also for facilities. And then I have a GIS manager. This is what the business application side looks like. We have a single programmer analyst. We still have some customized programming in-house that we still work on and do. We have 2 business analysts, which supports our applications. You'll see in a little bit, we have 80 plus applications we support. And then we have a process improvement specialist / project manager, and that person mainly is focused on just implementing projects, higher, larger projects full time. So there's the 4 we have under there. Under our technology team, our top 3 of our senior, what we call our senior engineers. We have a senior network engineer, a network engineer, and a systems engineer. I look at that as the triangle. They each support each other. Each one of them has a primary responsibility, and then they are supposed to be secondary if somebody else is gone. We had our AV conferencing engineer, which we hired a couple of years ago, which is Doug. We've got so much AV in-house now. Between this room, all the conference rooms, the courts, and now what's the new HHS campus. And then we have 4 desktop engineers. Those are the folks with what I call the feet on the ground, out supporting individuals. One of those stays back in the space and answers the help desk phone. The nice thing is with teams now, they don't have to be tied to that. They can actually go and do other things, but the team phone is on their belt and they're there. And we usually have at least 1 person out most of the time between the jail and our offsite facilities. We like to keep at least 2 people here out of those 4, because if we get a call from the courts and they're having issues and there's a big case going on, we usually got to send a person up. So we're basically single focused in all our areas. The only backup area we have is our desktop engineering folks. So a lot of those key folks at the top have some key responsibilities in our architecture, and we're 1 deep in all those. So, and then our finance manager, that's where office services reports up to. If you're unfamiliar with office services, or like our mailroom, they do all the mail processing, also handle special forms, any special copying and that. We just moved that from over to an area where the auditor's office was. We took a portion of that and moved that there to give facilities some space to store stuff. And then GIS, which is separated out, has one analyst. We have there's 3 possible levels under there with just a single position. So a little bit about the equipment we support. This is an estimate. This varies. This gets updated every day. Roughly have 100 Windows servers that support our organization. We don't have any mainframe systems, no AS400s. It's interesting, you talk to a lot of government side, my equivalents, and a lot of county governments still run AS400 equipment. A lot of the court systems and that are still ran on that. We are a 100% Windows-based system with SQL servers behind that. 835 personal computers, mobile devices. About 4 years ago, we started on an endeavor to upgrade the wireless throughout the facilities. We have 280 wireless access points through all our facilities. We cover about every square foot, including most closets. So the back-end infrastructure, our 81 network switches, that's all Aruba HP-based. Routers, which connects our networks all together, that's all Cisco. And then we have 178 what do you find as printers from HP, and also we have copy releases that we manage. So that's basic estimate of what we support from the hardware side on a daily basis. Application side, under the IT services support, we have about 80 applications that we support. That's a lot more than people realize. I'll show you a list of that in a minute. And then the GIS, our main GIS vendor is Esri, that runs under ArcGIS, and there's 45 specialized applications under that have been written for specific individuals, whether those are specific maps, pieces of data that runs under that side. Question I get all the time is about our core applications. Enterprise Justice System is from Tyler. We've had that system 10 and a half years. That's what the jail, juvenile detention center, the state's attorney, the circuit clerk, the public defender, the courts, and our supervision runs on. It's our largest system with the most users we've had, and probably the one system we've invested the most money in over the last 10 and a half years. Finance, HR, time and attendance is the new Munis. It's now called Enterprise ERP. That's the Munis system we've been on for about a year and a half from Tyler. Land records, that's Enterprise Records Management from Tyler. Planning and zoning, a couple years ago, improved that project, and that's InterGov. Tax administration is DevNet, been around for a long time in the state, and property appraisals is ProVal. So that's kind of our core. When I have a peer of mine ask me, what do you guys run in? This is usually the questions they ask. And there's a list of all our other applications we run. It's a pretty large list. From a budgeting side, a lot of our money goes to supporting and upgrading those applications. Each one of those applications has a primary support person, and then we have a backup person when that person's gone. So that's where about those 80 applications come from.
Just a quick question, Mark. I guess I would ask, when you talk to your peers in other counties, my impression, I don't want to lead the witness, but my impression is that some of these other organizations, within other counties have their own applications and manage it locally versus centralized. Can you maybe just maybe that's already part of your message, but kind of give us a difference why we do what we do versus a decentralized that maybe our peer counties would do.
Well, yeah, especially when you get into the larger counties. There are counties who are similar to us who have adopted what we have done and centralized that. It makes for better tracking. It gives you less number of FTEs to support. I mean, I've heard stories from my peers where you've got large counties up around Chicago who may have 6 or 7 time and attendance systems. So every elected official has their own and chooses their own. I think it's more of a trend to try to centralize, but in a lot of bigger counties, that's very difficult. So you have a lot of duplication. You have not only Cook County, for example, you have centralized IT in Cook County, who handles the central core part of IT. I know it's hard to compare, but we all can compare in the fact that we're all doing the same thing. We're all accomplishing the same thing. We're all supporting what we need to support that's defined in the Illinois Constitution. But each one of their electeds may may have an IT group and may not. It all depends. I think from comparison standpoints, if you look us in McLean, we're very similar in size and what we support. Only difference is they don't support their health department, I know, but they also still have a nursing home. But we're still very similar in size. So, yeah, it's different, but I would say the trend, many of my peers that I talk to, they save money by centralizing because we can manage those costs, we can manage the software contracts, we can manage the Microsoft. The amount we pay just alone to Microsoft every year is pretty large because we have to license all those goods. So, yep. Question?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. Early on, when you were showing the organizational chart, it showed 4 managers, 20 FTEs. So is 25, or were those counted in the FTEs, 25% roughly of your workforce is management?
From a support standpoint, I can go back to there. Yeah, that was total. That manages all those. The GIS. So from a funding standpoint, the GIS is separate. GIS is funded through a fee through our land records. So there's no chargeback in the GIS side. That is all funded through that fee that supports that piece. The finance manager is paid for via IT. The office services employee is paid through office services budget, which is a chargeback based on usage of different departments. So yeah, that all falls back through there. Sure.
And then I have one more quick question, if I could. I know privately we discussed several projects that were being worked on in the IT department, possible upgrade to a cloud system being one of those. Is that something that you would be able to update us on in the future?
Yeah, I'll show it to you in my list. It's actually on what
Oh, okay, thank you.
So we're getting there. So, and this is the number of the ArcGIS programs that are out there that run under GIS. So some of those may look familiar to you. Road closures, Peoria Promise qualifications, all those special things. Those are all specialty things that are written from a GIS standpoint in Esri to support all those. So. It comes from recording of land documents. I believe it's $20 for every recording goes to GIS, and then 100% funds GIS. All right, projects. So here's how we kind of define what a project is in Peoria County. It's a development of a new system or service, improvements to a system or service, improve business processes, introduce new ones, build or enhance infrastructure, apply new technology, or upgrade enterprise applications. The big question is, so what's a project? How do you differentiate to that? So that kind of defines that. Projects are not any system administration, system operation, break fixes, or customer support, direct stuff. Now you'll see as I show you some more data, there are projects that end up with work orders. We try to replace about a quarter of our equipment every year. That replacement is a project, but then we trigger work orders by individuals so those can be tracked and gotten done. So there are things where those numbers move between the two. So here's some history on projects. The number of projects we work on in the time continues to rise. 2021, we completed 40 projects. 2022, there were 58. 2023, we had 80 projects. Right now, we have about 30 active projects that are being worked on. There's 13 more in the queue, and we've got 20 done. Now, one thing you got to remember, the staffing I showed you, we do both. We do both support and project. So the only person that's really dedicated to a project is that single project manager. Everybody else you saw in there does both. They work on projects, they take care of issues. So we jump back and forth throughout the day as things come in and we prioritize things. Some of our active projects that are going on as we speak, we're working on Microsoft Teams voice migration at the JDC in the jail. Going to remove the traditional phone system there. And before The regional offices of education moves, we're going to convert them over. We've already got several hundred individuals across the county moved over to Microsoft Teams and off the traditional phone system. They all love it, and it's easy from us from the standpoint when somebody moves, you pick up and move the phone and plug it back in, if you even use a phone. The new Health and Human Services building, a lot of work behind that from the IT perspective. And as an FYI, that building has no telephones in it. That will all be Microsoft Teams in that building. Not even wired for telephone. It's all done for Teams. VMware, business continuity and disaster recovery. That's a project we just started on to look at recovery time and recovery points. We're getting ready to go out to the departments and talk to them on what their expectations are. If we have disaster in this building catches on fire, we have a flood, which we've had those before, and we flood the computer room. What's your expectation on recovery time? How long can you run your office without the system you're on? That is tied back into two future projects coming. 2025, we've got to look at our server storage and backup architecture. That is all set for, a lot of that's going out of support. A lot of that's set for replacement. And why we're doing that, we need to look at our enterprise justice system, which is the Tyler system, which we've had for 10 years now, and we refresh every 5 years on if we've come to the point now, if it makes sense to move that to the cloud. 5 years ago, when we refreshed that system, they weren't ready for the cloud. The system our size, now they're doing entire state implementations to the cloud. So that's some back-end work we're working on. As part of our security posture, we just had an RFQ go out for managed detection and response and security information event management. Those RFQs are back. What we're trying to do is narrow down the number of vendors out there. We got 13 responses on that. We'll narrow that down to what we feel are the best of the breed of that and send that back out as an RFP. Tyler Enterprise Supervision, which the board approved last year, is currently in process and will go live at the end of July. We've got a Tyler Enterprise Justice version upgrade we've got to do. That's in the planning. I believe coming up next on your agenda is the boardroom and agenda software. We've got a ProVal upgrade that's being tested now. We've got an InterGov upgrade that planning and zoning are testing right now. Here's some more things we're working on. IT computer room. We've got some cooling issues. The equipment in it that keeps that room cool is 20-some years old. We've had a couple Sunday nights where we get warning that the room was at 95 degrees. And so we've hired Dewberry to come in and assist us with designing a new system to keep that room cool. Public defender, Axon Digital Evidence. 2 years ago, the state's attorney's office moved all their digital evidence over to Axon, which is a cloud-based system. They hand off a lot of digital evidence off to the public defender. In our meetings with the public defender, we found that they didn't take that data and dump it on flash drives and hard drives, and none of that is managed or very well, or they can't edit it very well. So Axon actually has a public defender module where they can move that over in the cloud, keeps that all in the cloud. When the public defender goes out to the jail, they no longer have to take the information with them. It's all cloud access, can be edited from home or anywhere they want to work. We're down to, they've had the demo, they fell in love with it. We're just trying to hammer out contract at the moment. So we've got a Munis upgrade, looks like we're going to be doing shortly. Something new that just came on our radar, and I'm going to bring it up from the IT side. We'll see where this falls. There's new ADA compliance requirements that just got handed down by the Department of Justice for all web content for local government. It goes into effect in June. It must be done by April 24th to 26th. And I have sat in on one web meeting on it, and it's pretty intense on what they're going to require now for anything we put on the web. So that's something we're going to have to look at, and then you're going to have to keep it monitored. And we are kind of dispersed from the side. We allow our departments to keep their websites updated. We allow our elected officials to keep those kind of updated. It still goes centrally through Gretchen, but we're going to get a team together here shortly and see what it's going to take to come in compliance with this. So, and then a couple of GIS projects we're currently working on. The NG 911 editing workflow. 911's moving over to based on GIS. So becomes very important for addressing on that point. We've been working very close with the city on this, getting close to going live on that. We've got a very large GIS enterprise upgrade we have to do. Can't do that until the InterGov upgrade's finished, though. So we're waiting on that to get done, and then this will continue. And there's a county strategic plan hub site I know that the GIS team's also been working on. So those are a number of things we have going on at the moment. All right, so here's some statistics from what we call a program called Track It. And this was from 2022. And this shows the number of tickets closed. Doesn't show open. We did a closed one so we could kind of get it on one screen. We're working on an open one. But if you look at the top in the middle, total number of tickets that came in and were closed by our department was 6,357 tickets. So that's on top of all the other stuff that we do. We break it down by the top 15 categories, which is not a surprise. Odyssey's at the top. The thing that a lot of people don't realize when we were onboarding somebody to the organization or offboarding, there's tickets created as part of that process that IT has to do. We only report the parent tickets. There's been two, and there's multiple tickets underneath of those. So it takes quite a bit of our time as we add and remove people. There's stuff that we have to do in the background that we are audited on, and there's a timing that we have to remove people and get them out of specific systems. So there's our top 15. Over on the other side, you see our top 15 departments, and that kind of, not a surprise either. There's a number of break, fix, and new request tickets that come in from those departments in 2022. The health department, the sheriff, court administration, state's attorney, JDC, a lot of our very large users that use a lot of our stuff. So really not a surprise in there. Non-county employees, we have those are people who are not on our payroll, who may be state employees or other employees that use our system, and we track those. Other thing, if you look over, and I've had a few people ask me in our top 15, you get down towards the bottom, it says paper delivery. We in IT deliver paper to the departments. So when a department wants a box of paper, we do that delivery, and we keep track on how many times a year we do that. So it takes time. So, and you'll see in here, Penimation. We weren't on Munis by then. We're still on Penimation. There was 121 tickets on Penimation, but if we go to the next screen, and we're in 2023 now, you can look at Penimation. It should be in there. Is it on this one? Finance, Munis, yes. All of a sudden, there's 314 tickets that year, so it went up by almost 3 times. Remember when and this falls right in line with our expectation. Odyssey's still near the top, but if you remember when we went live with Cisco Duo, that created a lot of tickets and a lot of issues when we put that in. People had questions. We had 689 tickets that year. And this falls in line, I think, with what the expectation between the top 2 of our departments, the sheriff, county health, court administration. So.
Just, you brought up the software Cisco Duo, which was a new system for all of us to implement. Obviously, anything new drives IT tickets. But I always ask the question, what can we learn? So from this, as we implement a system similar to Duo, how can we improve that in training, education, self-service? Because to me, the IT tickets, every one of those should be, especially you start grouping those categories, you start looking at going, are there system improvements? Are there training improvements? Are there self-service improvements? What can we do to reduce we want to keep high customer service, but let's reduce the repetitive tickets that we can use another process to fix.
I can tie back tickets for new systems back to departments or individuals who did not attend training. And we go all the way back. We can go all the way back when we put Odyssey in. There are some departments who just people won't attend the training. And a lot of that ties back. We actually hired a company to come in and help us with this Duo rollout. I mean, we sent a ton of communications, offered people to come to the classroom and help them through it, and a lot of people just chose not to. I mean, I can't force people to do things. So a lot of it ties back to training. And you're right, there's data. Each one of those 689 tickets, I got a line that shows the ticket, what the issue was, and that. The challenge I have is I don't have staff at the moment to dig into all those and develop training for that. It's something I was actually talking to the CIO at McLean County about. They're going after a full-time training person within their IT group to start digging into these and start developing training behind this. We don't have anybody. We train on individual applications, but from an individual side of digging through 314 Munis tickets and then developing training on that, we just don't have the resources to do that.
I'll throw another question out here. I think when we do budget, you allocate cost based on FTE count in each group, computer resources and formulas, but I'll throw a thought out is on IT cost, maybe we should assess those back to those departments where the costs are coming from. So if a department has 100 employees, okay, their cost will be higher than a department that has 5. But maybe that department that has 5 employees has 1 employee who didn't take training, didn't learn. Why don't we charge back a chargeback? Money always seems to drive people's behavior, right? If you charge them, you hold them accountable, and you flag it. For your lack of training, here's your cost for your service. It's just a thought. And I don't want to create more work to do it with automation and that, but if we could do that, we can drive some behavior and corrective actions.
So this is our first quarter numbers from this year. This is from January, February, and March. Numbers all kind of line up where I would expect them. Munis has moved up a little bit. It's still new. There's still new pieces to that. We still have our regular Odyssey questions, still the largest system we use. A little bit on numbers. We actually support a lot more people than we have like Microsoft. We licensed 750 email addresses from Microsoft. We used to license 800. COVID hit, we lost staff, we reduced that down. That saved us quite a bit of money. We're down to 750. Now we're pushing that 750. We have to watch on a weekly basis, because if we go over that, then we got to add more licensing, which we don't want to do. So our employee numbers jump up in the summer because there's a lot of interns here in the summer, and every one of them interns requires a login and an email address, and that's a license. They do make it much easier now, and as we purge out, as somebody leaves the organization, we have ways to give access to those departments to files and stuff without holding on to that. So we can purge those licenses out. But we're pushing our 750. It's something we got to look at every week now. I also have a version of this that we put out weekly that I meet with the management team every Friday morning at 9, and we talk through the tickets that come in through the week. The last couple weeks, Teams has started to come up a little more. Microsoft is rolling out a new version of Teams, and unfortunately the way that works is we don't control a lot of that. They control a lot of that now, and so we don't know when it's coming and when it's not. And they had some issues a few weeks ago where, for example, I was working in Teams and my screen went blank and my Teams disappeared. Microsoft was making some changes, and we logged tickets on that stuff, so we'll see this week where Teams is. Last week it was our highest one. They also take this data, the managers do, to their staff meetings with their staff every week, and they go through tickets too and take a look at this. So we're starting to use this data more. There's more we could do, though. There's more behind these numbers that would help us improve. So if I come back in July, I'll come back before, but quarterly, my plan was to bring you back some project updates, the track it helped us data, and start breaking out the IT budget. One thing our finance manager does is we track every dollar we spend. We have every contract that we pay and every vendor we pay. And we actually work on the budget throughout the year. Our budget continues to be built throughout the year. Matter of fact, we've got our initial budget done already for next year. We've got to see and as we talk to the users on what they're looking at added that may come back into that. But we've got spreadsheets that track every dollar we spend, and I'm going to I'll bring that back to you and start breaking those out, show you our top 10 or top 20. We spend a lot of money with Tyler. Our money from Microsoft continues to go up. I'm guessing we're spending $500,000+ with Microsoft now. We're pretty close to it in licensing a year. And then we need to dig in and look at the details on the website and the ADA compliance stuff. I want to keep you guys in front of that so you know. There's been lots of discussion at the NACO level, especially some of the larger counties, on what's going to be on those websites and what's not, and what we're going to have to manage and do. So, and then I can add anything else you guys want to see.
Well,
Questions?
I'm going to ask one additional. When you look at your one for the public defender, they wanted a new package added, and for the right reasons. Does that charge for that software and that go directly back to that department, or does that generally get spread across everyone?
No different than all the other packages that we charge for. It gets spread across the organization. That'll come back. We'll cover the cost of that, and that'll fall within that centralized piece. And I know Heather in the finance group has been working on trying to distribute some of that a little more fairly the last year as they went through. For instance, the health department doesn't use the criminal justice system. So they don't really pay a part of that. The biggest pieces of that are charged back to those departments. And so I know that they worked on that last year, and they have started that process of going through. Originally, when we brought Bellwether in, when I got here 10 and a half years ago, there was really no chargeback at that time. GIS funds were going to the general fund. And we brought Bellwether in to do a study. What's the best way to pay for IT? And at that point, the easiest and best way to do it is based on the number of people and the number of devices. So that's what we've been doing for the last 8 or 9 years is you have X number of devices. We charge for it so much per device and so much for the number of people you have. Well, as some of the larger programs we put in have gotten more expensive, there's been some folks who says, why should I have to pay for that? And I can understand that. A lot of the other balances out, but finance has been working on that, and we've tried to get a little bit better each year on narrowing that down a little more. So,
Okay, I'll open it up for committee members or thoughts, questions. Sharon?
This may be more of a comment. Heather and I have had this conversation quite a bit, and I've heard from board members about all the different charges from the different departments on cell phones. As you mentioned, centralizing things, we have 285 you cover, but we still, departments are using their own, I don't know, cell phones, they're being billed or whatever. I'd really like to see us look at a contract that covers the whole organization in regards to cell phones. I just think we'd probably get a better price if we did that. I think that's, we also, I see there's charges in departments for software. Can you make a comment about that?
there are some electeds that will go off and do some individual things on their own that initially they will pay for the upfront maybe, and maybe that's an agreement between Scott and them the first year, and then that'll get rolled into our budget the second year. I know when the state's attorney put in Axon the first year, they paid for the upfront installation and the first year's cost of that because I didn't have that in my budget. We do put extra money in the budget because there's stuff that comes up throughout the year. I mean, I had staff meet with the courts yesterday. They got 2 new things they want to do in the courts. I don't know if we're going to be, if we have the capacity to do it this year, but those are planning we have to do. And some things are pretty easy and we can get done, but it all comes down to dollars and cents and who's got it. And we do build extra money into the budget for those things that come up that we have to do and not aware about. If I can follow up with your cell phone question, we do buy off the state contract, the state of Illinois contract, which is pretty good. That unlimited cost of $30-some a month, unlimited, is pretty good. And on the device side, if they come through us, we can get those devices at half price. But those are now government phones. Question I get all the time, somebody retires, can I buy my phone? I can't sell a government phone, so we have to hold on to those. But we've tried, but there's still offices who manage their own and want to manage those costs on their own. So I think it's better than it used to be. At least we have a lot of people on Verizon. And we try to utilize that state contract. Verizon sends us monthly updates. I mean, from a state side on what we pay for stuff, we buy iPads through them, but we buy iPhones through them. And the price is good, and I don't know where else you can find unlimited on an iPhone for $30-some a month. I don't know if, I think it's 80, 90, 100 from the personal side now. So we're paying about a third. So we try to take advantage of it when we're aware of it. So
Well, I would like to see that happen, where it's all coming from one centralized location.
Okay, good input. Anyone else have questions? And again, in the opening, I talked to Scott and Mark about having Mark come in to educate us, because IT is one of the bigger departments we have and one of the larger costs because of all these Microsoft licenses and staff and everything else. We need to understand the where and why, because we are coming into budget cycle, and there's a few of us that are kind of budget hounds, Sharon. Anyhow, so just want to give an opportunity. I asked Mark if he would come back the next couple of months, maybe break, he talked about in July, but maybe if he's got some messaging for June. And think about it as committee members. Also, there's 18 board members. We need to help fill in some gaps for some of our peers. If they ask questions, we get into the full budget cycle in education. And as part of this education, part of it's us challenging, why are we doing it this way? Why pros and cons? So with that, one more round, otherwise, Mr. Phelan.
Just one final thought. I think it was Jennifer that had asked if some of that data could be shared. When looking at those job descriptions, I don't know, IT, that's not really an environment that I thrive in. Would it be possible to share job descriptions as well, or like responsibilities, so we can kind of understand what those roles are completing?
HR has those, we have all those descriptions, I think for public knowledge. Yeah, we can.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. We will now move to the one and only resolution for today, is the contract award for meeting and agenda management software. Sharon is a first and Rob is a second. So it's on the floor. I'll have our Administrator Sorrell present it, and if he wants to bring in anyone else in on the conversation, that's up to him. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So this project was a project that we did not initially budget. So this is one of those projects that just came up, but it was driven by your and the rest of the board's and the clerk's interactions with our current voting software. We assembled a team that included Vice Chairman Williams and Member Daly, the clerk, Ms. Parker, and her chief deputy, in administration, myself, Shauna, Jan and Nancy, Jenny from the state's attorney's office, because there's a step in the preparation of agendas that Jenny does every single month. So her feedback from that perspective was critical. And then a number of folks from IT. That group, we met multiple times, decided what the scope of work was, and when I'm done making my comments, I'll turn it over to Vice Chairwoman Williams to provide some insight to her, but I can generally characterize everyone's knowledge gain on just what needs to happen month in and month out to get this committee packet and a county board packet before you, in the work that goes on behind the scenes. So we looked at all those things. We looked at how the system would work for you in a board meeting, and then what the system could do for both the clerk and for administration as it relates to minutes preparation. We put an RFP out. We received 3 responses to that RFP. The team evaluated them using some established criteria that was weighted in terms of importance. And then we had an initial demonstration via Microsoft Teams or Zoom for all 3. One of the respondents after that initial demonstration was dropped from consideration, partially due to the significant price differential being higher than the other 2, and just some things in how their system worked that really did not appeal to us. The other 2 vendors then were asked to come back and do a second demonstration, with some more detailed information. We provided them more source documents in advance so that they could actually not just do a generalized demo, but actually use information that we generate on a monthly basis. We actually used the packet for this committee from either February or March. So we gave them all the source documents that went into the packet for this committee that month, and then had them walk through, from the step from creating the agenda for this committee all the way through the clerk doing minutes after the county board meeting. Once we did all those things, we checked references. We landed on a solution that is recommended from the team of ClerkBase and Harbor Software. ClerkBase is headquartered in Rhode Island. They are actually the owner of our current software called Onboard. And in this instance, they've partnered with an Australian company called Harbor Software. They're from the metropolitan Melbourne, Australia area, part of Australia. And they had two products that really, for us, in terms of, they're called Doc Assembler and Docs on Tap. The Doc Assembler product is what we will use to create and assemble the agenda packets, both for the committee meetings and the county boards. It's what can be used for what will be used to migrate a resolution from a committee to a county board packet. And then Docs on Tap is what you, the board members, will use and the clerk will use for running the meeting, voting on items, and the minutes after the meeting is completed. The primary selling point was that we didn't, one, there's not an app. It's all completely web-based. You're just using an internet browser, and that could be, that could be any internet browser that is readily available. Two, there's no, form templates that we have to use. They do have templates we can use, but we don't have to use, that are on their website. And in lieu of using those form templates, we can just use our Microsoft Office suite that as you just heard, we're already paying Microsoft for, and then it completely and seamlessly integrates as we build the packet. On the voting side, again, you're not using an app, you're using an internet browser. That will eliminate, and we saw it in practice during both demonstrations, that will eliminate the issues that you had as board members during board meetings when Rachel would have to constantly refresh and it would get bogged down. Because we were in the onboard example, you use an app as opposed to using just an internet browser. And that is the primary difference, because then we don't have to worry about also keeping that app up to date with updates that might get pushed out from the Apple App Store and whatnot. We did have some concerns about Harbor being from Australia. That's a 15-hour time differential that's between us and them. They're 15 hours ahead of us. They do have U.S.-based customer service. They do have the partnership with ClerkBase, which will be able to support as well. We also had some concerns that would be an early adopter of their product. As of today, the city of Fort Worth, Texas is the only other contract they have in the United States. And Fort Worth's contract award is roughly 4 to 5 weeks old. So their city council in Fort Worth just awarded that contract, and they have not gone live yet. That being said, Harbor Software has a market penetration of 30% of the units of local government in Australia. That sounds like a significant number, and it is a significant number as a percentage, but to put that in context, there are more county governments in Illinois than there are units of local government in all of Australia. There's roughly 65 or so units of local government, but Harbor has 30% of that market share. and they are actively looking to get into the United States. So, but we talked directly with the CEO of Harbor Software and the CEO of Clerkbase, who are part of their team. We felt very confident that being as a software as a service, so it'll be in the cloud, it's all web-based, that we will be able to function at a very high level and successfully using the product despite the time difference. As it relates to cost, the Clerkbase Harbor Software proposal had a 5-year cost, so we asked for a 5-year contract of just a shade under $180,000. The other finalist that was under consideration was $36,570 less than that. But the majority of that cost differential for Clerkbase and Harbor Software is in the startup cost. So there's roughly that same dollar number, 36,000-ish, in one-time costs that would be at the beginning of the project. And then actually, if you go and look at the annual expense for the software maintenance and licensing fees, the Clerkbase Harbor Software price per year is actually less when you carve out the startup cost. So we thought that actually was a good decision as well. Because Mark does put a little extra into the IT budget, like you heard, we have the ability to cover year one in IT's current appropriations, so we don't have to do a budget amendment to cover the cost of year one contract, and then we'll build years 2, 3, 4, and 5 into the IT budget going forward. I'd say the final component of why we chose, 2 final reasons why we chose the recommended vendor as we did, would be one, in addition to Microsoft Office Suite tools, documents would be stored in our SharePoint versus our OneDrive. And that actually makes a difference in pre-Office 365 terminology. Your OneDrive was the hard drive on your desktop. It still is today, but it's in the cloud instead of actually on your desktop. Only you can use it unless you grant access to individual files. SharePoint is like a network drive, and anybody with permissions, we do it organizationally at the department level, so everybody in county administration has access to the county administration SharePoint. That was a pretty technology-based deciding factor. And then lastly, time to go live. From the day I would execute a contract after your approval to when we would actually turn the system on, and we would start using it to create agendas, and you would start using it to vote on using it at meetings. The Clerkbase Harbor Software team was in the less than 8-week range. The other finalist was at least 20 weeks, if not longer than that. So we saw that as a substantial benefit as well. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions, but right now I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Williams or Ms. Cordes-Boswell to add any comments that they would like to.
We'll start with Sharon. Do you want to make comments?
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to say, wow, I can't believe how much work goes into these packets. I think nobody has any idea how much work goes into getting the packets ready. So many different people have to look at the packet. Jenny's really involved. So when Linda and I got involved in this, really, I think we kind of felt the same way, that we were kind of overseeing this. We wanted to see our portion of how this was going to work. But for us, more importantly, it was the folks behind the scenes that were doing really the work. So we felt that their choice was probably more important than what our choice was. But one thing I really liked, and I think both softwares offered this, but we can make comments. I know when I'm going through the packet, I have pages and pages of notes So it's going to be really nice to be able to just make a note on the packet, and it's yours alone. You can share that with, like if Danny and I are talking about something, I can share that information with him to, hey, what do you think about this, or whatever. So I find that's really appealing for me, that I can make notes as I'm going along on the packet. But again, Scott mentioned their pretty aggressive timeline, which, we kind of, because we wanted to make the right decision, we spent one extra month really looking at this and having them put a packet together for us so we could actually see how it worked. But it was a good team. We all worked really well together, and I'm excited to bring this forward for support.
Great, thank you.
I don't really have anything additional to what Scott said. He covered it very thoroughly. Happy to answer any questions from the middle ground perspective, but we were both of the two finalists were good solutions, and this was the one that we just ultimately, unanimously, I believe, all selected.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Blair?
I have a couple of questions. Are we going to have a training, speaking to Mark's thing on this?
Absolutely.
Awesome. One thing I would love to see is on the first night, I know that there's lots of pieces to this, but on the first night we use it, do we have support from clerk base who will be available in case
Yes.
drama happens?
We've thought of that as well.
Okay, awesome. Because that'd be useful to have. My only concern with a startup like this, I've been the second user of a software package before. I mean, there's great risk to that. If either this falls apart or the company decides not to continue into this market, we have an out, so that we don't have to pay the full 5 years if that happens.
Yeah, we would work into the contract an exit clause that doesn't severely penalize us. The two software products that they proposed, the one, the agenda management and the board docs on tap, they are well-established pieces of software, but in Australia.
Yeah.
So they've been around for actually almost, I think, 15 plus years, but exclusively in Australia and New Zealand. So that they're just breaking into the United States market.
Yeah, but I could see them decide this is not a market we can either afford to or want to go into after going into it. It's always a risk. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it because they're hungry to help us, I'm sure. But it is always a risk.
Nope, good question. Any other comments or questions? Mr. Elsasser.
Well, I'm not a tech guru, so I'm kind of lost in a lot of this discussion, but they do sound like they're very well qualified, but I'm not real excited about having a company from outside the USA. I mean, that bothers me some. I do have a question, though. What do other counties that are like size, like Tazewell, Sangamon, Winnebago, some of those counties, who do they use? Or we probably have never really checked on that, but there has to be some success out there somewhere in the United States. Otherwise, these counties wouldn't be able to survive, with their agendas.
So I think, great question, Mr. Elsasser. I think there's 3 solutions that are present to your question. First is the third place vendor that was incredibly expensive, is a widely adopted and used software platform. However, we thought it was far too expensive for what our needs were. And second, the team did not care for and thought it'd be very user-friendly for how you actually put information into the system when you are building an agenda. And Sharon and Linda didn't really care for the way that you all would actually use the system to vote in a meeting. But it is a widely used system. In fact, as a corporation, they're corporate sponsors at NACO, at probably U.S. Conference of Mayors, and the International City County Management Association, that is my professional association. The second place vendor is along the same lines. They are a widely used, widely adapted provider of multiple types of government software. They actually are our website vendor, and I think roughly 2 years ago they purchased Municipal Code Corporation, which is where we keep our code of ordinances. And so that company is also very widely used, and their product we could use very effectively. It got down to some of the nitty-gritty type of details as to why we went with Clerk-Based and Harbor software. I think the third answer to your question is there are more units of local government than we all realize that are still doing things on paper or using Word and Excel, and they don't have the audit trail of, when Jenny provides a comment on an agenda briefing I wrote, and then I can see that and say, no, I was trying to say this instead, or yeah, that makes total sense, we'll make the change. They don't have the long-term records management. And even to a degree, today, even with Onboard, we don't have that. If you ask me how we maintain agenda packets, they're PDFs on our SharePoint. And all the source documents, the agenda briefing and the resolution for this item, for example, and the bid report, those went to Jan and Nancy as Word documents that then they input into Onboard right now, and then Onboard builds the packet as a PDF. But we're not storing that in Onboard. We're storing it in our SharePoint. The clerk base, which is who the contract will actually be with, so that's a United States-based company, and then they're going to do some subcontracting to the Australian company. Clerk base is in the Harbor software product will, yes, use our SharePoint, but will also have a document repository that we can use for long-term records management.
Okay. Sharon?
One more comment. Scott made me think about that. On our iPads, we probably have 4 months worth of packets that we can look at. Sometimes I want to go back a year. That's something that we did a year ago and look at it. But at this point, we really can't do that. But with this software, we'll be able to.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Renault?
Scott, you mentioned auditing purposes that some of the notes are recorded. Is that true for the notes that we would take on the packet as well, and is that discoverable?
Yes, those would be subject to FOIA, unless Jenny says otherwise, but she's nodding her head yes.
So whatever we write on those notes
It's part of our training.
Yeah.
It'll be part of our communication training plan. Great to ask. Mr. Elsasser?
How long are we going to be paying Onboard, or when does that contract end?
Well, since Clerkbase owns Onboard and they're partnering with Harbor Software, part of our contract negotiations and finalization will be a very favorable exit strategy to Onboard.
Okay. So this will be all the agendas and then the voting during the meeting?
That's correct.
Because I kind of like the way we vote right now. So.
Okay.
It's pretty simple, and it doesn't cost very much. Pardon me?
All right.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for
Did you have
all
a
the
question?
questions and comments. Was there another one?
Jennifer?
Okay. Anyone
Sorry,
else have? Dr. Blair?
Just to Brian's comment, as the first person who votes and then has to wait and hear for everyone else, I'm at a disadvantage than if all of us voted at the same time in the current way. Just to put that out there.
No, I won't go in that detail. I'm okay. Anyone else have comments, questions? And again, thank you to Sharon and Linda and the extended county team that worked through this. I know it was a lot of work. But anything worth doing, let's do it right. So I appreciate their work, and, their recommendation and the due diligence behind it was well respected. So with that, I want to call this for a vote. All in favor of this resolution with the sign of aye? Aye. Those opposed with the nay? All right, passes unanimously. All right, I told Scott I'd finish this meeting in less than an hour. I failed again. Public comment. Anyone for public comments? Seeing none, I'll close that section. Miscellaneous. Anybody in the committee? Mr. Elsasser.
I just wanted to say, years ago, whenever we had a voice vote, we always started and went like this. And so, I mean, I would be happy to vote first if I ever.
Okay. Any other comments or miscellaneous? With that, we're adjourned. Thank you.